What would you do if you walked into a lawyer's office or your beloved uncle's were reading, only to discover he left his entire $50 million estate to your greedy cousins who hadn't spoken to him in years, and nothing to you, the nephew who'd cared for him until his final breath? Today I'm sharing 3 life lessons from Nathan Foster's Courtroom battle, where a hidden letter revealed the truth about family, greed, and what inheritance really means. Let's begin. Nathan Foster sat in the mahogany panel conference room of Morrison and Associates, San Francisco's most prestigious estate law firm. His uncle Richard had died 2 weeks earlier at 78, and Nathan was still grieving. Richard had been more than an uncle. He'd been Nathan's mentor, friend, and the only family member who truly understood him. Around the table sat Nathan's cousins, Victoria, Brandon, and Lauren. They'd barely visited Richard in his final years. But here they were, dressed expensively, faces carefully neutral, waiting to hear about this estate. Richard had built a successful biotech company, selling it in 2018 for $65 million. After taxes and some charitable giving, his estate was worth approximately $50 million. Everyone assumed the 4 nieces and nephews would split it evenly, $12.5 million each. Attorney James Morrison cleared his throat and began reading, Richard Foster, being of sound mind. The will was straightforward. To Victoria, $15 million. To Brandon, $15 million. To Lauren, $15 million. The remaining $5 million to various charities. To Nathan, nothing. Nathan felt like he'd been punched. The room went silent. Then Victoria spoke, voice dripping with false sympathy. "Nathan, I'm so sorry. That must be surprising." Brandon added quickly, "Uncle Richard must have had his reasons. Maybe he thought you were doing fine on your own." Lauren said nothing, but her smirk was unmistakable. Nathan's mind reeled. He'd spent countless hours with Richard these past 5 years. Weekly dinners, hospital visits, being there when Richard was scared, in pain, lonely, while Victoria, Brandon, and Lauren were at charity galas and vacation homes. Nathan was holding Richard's hand through chemotherapy. This made no sense. Richard had told Nathan explicitly, just months before his death, "You're the only one who cared about me, not my money. You'll understand when the time comes." Nathan hired his own attorney and contested the will. The case went to San Francisco Superior Court. And what unfolded teaches the first crucial lesson about human nature. Lesson number 1. You learn people's true character not in comfort, but in conflict. Courtroom battles strip away pretense. The trial began 6 months after Richard's death. Nathan's attorney, Sarah Chun, argued the will was executed under suspicious circumstances. Richard had been on heavy medication. The will was prepared by an attorney Victoria had recommended, not Richard's longtime lawyer. Richard had made previous statements about leaving significant assets to Nathan. During depositions and testimony, Nathan watched his cousin's masks fall away completely. Victoria testified under oath. Nathan was always Richard's favorite. We were hurt by that favoritism. Frankly, maybe Richard finally saw that Nathan manipulated him emotionally. This was a lie. Victoria had called Richard maybe twice a year, always when she needed money. Brandon testified, "Nathan has always been jealous of our success. He's a high school teacher, making $60,000 a year. Of course he wants our inheritance." Brandon had borrowed $200,000 from Richard for a business opportunity that failed, money never repaid. Lauren's testimony was coldest. "Uncle Richard told me privately he was disappointed in Nathan's life choices. He wanted to leave his money to people who'd done something meaningful." Lauren had been too busy with her real estate career to attend Richard's final birthday party. Nathan had organized the loan. Sarah Chung confronted each of them with documented evidence. Call logs showing Nathan spoke with Richard 3 to 4 times weekly while they barely called. Hospital visitor logs showing Nathan visited 47 times during Richard's illness. Victoria visited twice, Brandon once, Lauren never. Credit card records showing Nathan paid for Richard's groceries, medications, home repairs, never asking for reimbursement. Under cross-examination, their stories fell apart. Victoria admitted she'd suggested a new attorney because he was more efficient. Brandon confessed he'd been too busy to visit during Richard's illness. Lauren acknowledged she'd missed the funeral because of a business conflict. The courtroom isn't kind to liars. Watching his cousin's testimony crumble, Nathan learned something profound. You don't really know people until you see how they behave when something valuable is at stake. Comfort lets people hide who they are. Conflict reveals them. On day 4 of the trial, Sarah Chun presented evidence that would change everything. Sarah addressed Judge Patricia Martinez. Your Honor, I'd like to present Defense Exhibit 47, a letter found in Richard Foster's personal safe, dated 1 week before his death, addressed to be open in court if my will is contested. The courtroom went silent. The letter was verified authentic by handwriting experts. Judge Martinez allowed it to be read aloud. Sarah read, "To the court. If you're reading this, it means my will has been contested, likely by Nathan. Good. This is exactly what I planned. I left my fortune to Victoria, Brandon, and Lauren, knowing they would accept it without question. I left nothing to Nathan knowing he would question it, because Nathan actually cared about me, not my money. This will contest is my final gift to Nathan. Not money, though that will come, but truth. I wanted to see one final time who my family really was. I suspected Victoria, Brandon, and Lauren cared only about inheritance. This was a test. If they'd had any decency, they would have shared with Nathan voluntarily, knowing he cared for me. They didn't. They accepted millions without a second thought about the nephew who'd been by my side. Nathan, by contesting this will, you've proven again you care about justice and what was right, not just about money. You wanted to understand why I do this. That's exactly who you are. Here's the truth. There's a second will, held by my original attorney, Gerald Hampton. That will, executed the day before this one, leaves 60% of my estate to Nathan, 10% each to Victoria, Brandon, and Lauren, and 10% to charity. It is the valid will, properly executed when I was clear-minded. The will James Morrison Reed was a deliberate fake, designed to test my family's character. I wanted the court and the world to see who came contested, Nathan, caring about principle, and who didn't, my other nieces and nephews, happy to take money they didn't deserve. Nathan, you inherit not because you were perfect, but because you were present. You loved me when I had nothing left to give but my dying company. That's the person I want carrying my legacy. To Victoria, Brandon, and Lauren, you get 10% each, which is far more than you deserve. I hope one day you learn that love matters more than money. I doubt it, but I hope. Signed, Richard Foster. The courtroom erupted. Victoria's face went white. Brandon looked sick. Lauren was crying, whether from shame or anger, Nathan couldn't tell. Hashtag transition to resolution. Judge Martinez recessed for the day. The next morning, she delivered her ruling. Lesson number 2. The most valuable inheritance isn't money. It's the lessons and values someone passes on. Judge Martinez's ruling was swift. The second will was valid. Nathan would receive $30 million. Victoria, Brandon, and Lauren would each receive $5 million. Charities would receive $5 million. But the money wasn't the story. The story was what Richard had taught Nathan through this bizarre, painful process. After the verdict, Nathan stood on the courthouse steps, facing news cameras. A reporter asked, "How do you feel about your cousins? Are you angry?" Nathan thought carefully. "I'm not angry. I'm sad for them. They had the chance to know an incredible person, our Uncle Richard. They chose money over relationship. They lost something far more valuable than any inheritance." Another reporter, "What will you do with $30 million? Honestly, I'm still processing," Nathan said. "But I know what Uncle Richard would want. He valued education, research, helping people build better lives. I'll use this money in ways that honor what he actually cared about." And Nathan did. He established the Richard Foster Foundation, funding biotech research and scholarship for students from low-income backgrounds pursuing science. He continued teaching, taking a year off to set up a foundation, then returning part-time because he loved it. The money changed Nathan's life in practical ways: security, freedom, opportunity. But the real inheritance was a lesson Richard had taught him. Character matters more than wealth. Presence matters more than presence. Love matters more than money. 6 months later, Victoria reached out to Nathan. What happened teaches a final lesson. Lesson number 3. Justice doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like someone finally understanding what they lost. Victoria asked to meet for coffee. Nathan almost declined, but curiosity won. She looked different, older, tired. "I need to say something," Victoria began. "I've spent 6 months thinking about that courtroom, about Uncle Richard's letter, about what he said about me." Nathan listened. "He was right," Victoria continued, voice breaking. "I did care more about money than about him. I told myself I was busy, that you were closer to him, so it made sense for you to visit. But the truth is, I didn't want to deal with his illness. It was uncomfortable, and I assumed the inheritance would come eventually anyway." She paused. Reading that letter, seeing what he thought of me in his final days, Nathan, that hurt more than losing money. I realized I lost something irreplaceable, a relationship with someone who loved me, and I threw it away for greed I didn't even recognize in myself. Nathan saw genuine remorse. "Victoria, I appreciate you saying this. I don't expect forgiveness," Victoria said. "But I wanted you to know, your uncle taught me something even in death. I've been reaching out to family I've neglected. I've been volunteering at a hospice, sitting with patients who don't have family. I'm trying to become someone Uncle Richard wouldn't be ashamed of." This is a profound final lesson. Justice in courtrooms is often about money, settlements, legal victories. But real justice, the kind that changes people, happens in hearts and minds. It happens when someone looks at themselves honestly and decides to do better. Richard's elaborate test didn't just reveal character. For Nathan, it validated his choices. For his cousins, it offered a painful mirror. And for Victoria, eventually, it became a catalyst for change. What can Nathan's courtroom battle teach us? First, character reveals itself under pressure. You learn who people really are, not in comfort, but in conflict. Second, real inheritance isn't money. It's lessons and values. Nathan inherited $30 million, but the real gift was understanding what truly matters. Third, justice sometimes takes time and unusual forms. Richard's plan was unconventional, but it revealed truth and ultimately inspired change. If you've experienced a family conflict over inheritance, tell me in the comments, what lessons did you learn about character? If you believe character matters more than wealth, that real inheritance is values, not money, hit that subscribe button. Remember, Nathan was cut out of a $50 million will, endured a brutal trial, and discovered it was all a test, one that revealed who his family truly was and what his uncle truly valued. The courtroom revealed truth, and truth, however painful, is justice. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.